I don't want to hear your pitiful excuses.
Well, I thought you were a steamy pile of garbage. I can't believe you don't see it. What are you, Helen Keller? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Filmsnobbery Live. I'm your host, the man that most call the film snob, Nic Baisley. Joining me via Skype and in the chat room tonight is Mr. Get Stuck himself, Jerry Cavallero. And we've got lots of great stuff to talk to you about tonight. First off, we're happy to announce that March will be the First Glance Film Festival month here at Filmsnobbery. We'll be highlighting some of this year's entries in April's festival. That's the Hollywood Festival. And we'll have the creators behind those films right here on the show. I'm really excited. All month long, we're going to have a whole bunch of different creators. It's going to be great. First Glance is also the sponsor of tonight's contests. We've got two contests tonight. We're going to kick things off right away with our first contest. Take it away, Jerry.
Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome, Jerry.
Again, we're really happy to have First Glance Films as a sponsor. And tonight's contest that we're going to start off with is 2 tickets to First Glance Hollywood, the First Glance Film Festival in Hollywood, California. It's April 9th through 11th. And tonight you get the 2 tickets and a Movie Maker magazine subscription. So what you're going to have to do is, since I know a lot of people have been complaining about being too slow at typing with our contest for Twitter, I am going to tweet out something, and I need you to retweet it. And what I'm tweeting out is watch to win free tickets to First Glance Hollywood, April 9th through 11th, while watching www.filmsnobbery.com/live. So I'm tweeting that out right now. First person to retweet it, I am twitter.com/getstuck. First person wins.
All right. So Jerry's going to take care of that. And, yep, I see it right here. Get Stuck says, watch to win free tickets to First Glance Hollywood, April 9th through 11th, while watching filmsnobbery.com/live. And you also have to make sure you mention Filmsnobbery and at First Glance Film. So you can hear Jerry go clickety-clickety-clack. So while we're waiting for that, I got to tell you guys, our tonight's show is a great one. Our first guest tonight is writer-director. He has been prolific in his career. He has become a fixture in the independent film world for his work with such initiatives as DIY Days, his doc-style web series Radar, and which you can see over at Babblegum, and also radar.workbookproject.com, and The Workbook Project. I'm talking, of course, about Mr. Lance Weiler. In the second half of the show, we're going to be talking to technology consultant, or as she's actually called the organic technology consultant, Adria Richards. But first, I want to have us look at Lance Weiler's appearance in 2008 on The Conversation. So let's take it away. Jeff, load the conversation.
My premise is that it's a really interesting kind of pivotal historical moment that we're at right now in terms of the democratization of filmmaking and creating games and creating, full-length animated features if you want. So really pivotal moment, but a lot of unanswered questions about what's the business model going to be. How are people going to reach audiences? How are people going to, what's the role of distributors and studios and kind of the old-fashioned infrastructure? It feels like, we're not in a world yet where everyone can be like you and sort of do it themselves and be successful at it, but it feels like we're taking steps toward that world.
Unlike any other time in the history of cinema, now is the time that you can actually get directly to whoever you're trying to reach. So I think in terms of us coming together and meeting up with some really great people from various industries, whether it be the game industry, the software industry, the film industry, and kind of coming together in San Francisco for the conversation, it gives a chance to really spark that debate, like what are these new models? What are people doing? A chance to share information with each other. And I think that's a quantum leap because, in the entertainment industry, it's been very much like who's behind the curtain, who's Oz, who's working all those levers. And it's very much the case when you pull it back, you realize it is a little guy who's just like working some levers, you know.
Right.
So our opportunity to really kind of have an open discussion around it and to remove it from the part of being, okay, well, here are the people talking at you, to an open discourse about these models, I think is very valuable. And realizing it isn't from one particular industry. These things, the ideas can spark from all of these industries.
Someone emailed me today and was asking, well, why are you describing it as not a conference? And my feeling is that a conference winds up being people on stage talking to people in the audience who are kind of there listening passively. A lot of times conferences get sold out to the sponsors, right? So you sort of notice, gee, half of the people on every panel seem to be sponsors of the conference and they're sort of shilling their products. So we're trying to get away from that with the conversation and really make it this mapping out and exploring and interaction between the people on stage who are just sort of sharing, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm learning, with the people in the audience who are very likely doing stuff and learning stuff and kind of pioneering.
For me, one of the most hot button issues is around the topic of audience. I think that's a very important aspect, especially with the fragmentation of the outlets. And you've seen it very much in audience direct, by musicians. And it's an interesting model, I think, because for a lot of filmmakers or storytellers, the ability to kind of you make a work, you toil, you slave away at it, and a lot of the stuff has become democratized. So the production aspects are all there, the tools are all there. Obviously, it comes down to a good story, but I think the biggest issue is like, okay, well now with all this clutter, all this stuff that's in the marketplace, how do you actually break through? How do you actually reach an audience in a meaningful way?
It's interesting. I mean, you have all these different events, whether they're film festivals or digital media events, where you have different constituencies of people. Sometimes you have more technologists, sometimes you have more sort of creators and filmmakers. And I think one of the interesting things that we're trying to achieve with the conversation is, could you bring the technologists and the entrepreneurs and the filmmakers and the internet video people and the game developers all together in one place and see what sparks would fly?
The beauty is it's like a starting point. It's kind of like there's nothing that's been, there's no set way to do it. And that's exciting. I think that's what excites me the most about it.
And we're back, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Lance Weiler.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me on the show.
Lance, thank you so much for opening time up in your schedule. You are a busy man. If anyone were to go to www.lanceweiler.com, they would definitely notice that you have a full calendar.
Yeah, it's been pretty busy lately. A lot of traveling, a lot of different things going on. All very exciting, though.
Yeah. So, Lance, the clip we just showed is from a past interview back in 2008. Has anything you said between then and your upcoming participation in this year's conversation changed?
I think that in some ways the landscape has totally changed. I mean, some of the stuff that we were talking about in that clip from over a year ago is still very relevant. I think, if anything, it's become more and more common in terms of, I think at this point, the issues that we're all facing as, filmmakers or storytellers are obvious, and I think those cornerstones of like, how do you fund your work, how do you create your work, how do you distribute and sustain from your work, are as relevant now, if not more so, than they were, when Scott and I sat down. I just want to say that that was not framed by anybody. That was like a camera that was sitting somewhere. So I just wanted to put that out there because the composition is not very good on that interview. So.
You're always a director first, aren't you? So, it kind of along those lines, though, when you created DIY Days, part of the mission was to promote funding, creating, distributing, and sustaining filmmakers. Which of those four issues do you see as being the most pervasive currently in the independent film culture?
Well, I think if I step through them, I think funding is probably foremost one of the more difficult parts, even with the rapid kind of decrease and due to the democratization of the tools, the ability for people to create more fluidly, easily. It's still, that and the sustainability parts are probably the most important parts because they dictate the ability to actually, make work. I'd say that in terms of the distribution, that part has become very commoditized. It's something where there's a lot of people in the space, and if anything, I think the discoverability of the work is probably a very, is more pressing even than the distribution of the work at this point. And I think the creating is very important. So I guess, Nick, to answer your question, I still feel that all four of those things are incredibly important. I'd say, though, that the sustainability is probably the one that's the most pressing to me, and that I think is the most important for filmmakers out there, because if you can't sustain, you can't continue to make work. So I think that that's probably the biggest issue that most people are facing right now.
There's a lot of ways for a filmmaker right now to go and be seen and be found once they've got their movie out there. I mean, there's still traditional distribution outlets, but there's also, all these transmedia outlets, online platforms, big and small, from indie flicks and the form of B-side and how they work with film festivals and stuff like that. There is still film festivals that are helping, trying to, get films discovered and played. Do you feel that it's easier to get your film out there, but harder to get it noticed, given the glut of the amount of people out there that are trying to work with film?
Yeah, I mean, I think because of those democratization of the tools, it's definitely a lot more challenging. I mean, back when Stefan Avalos and I made the last broadcast, in 1996, 97, it was very much, the idea was to kind of make a movie for no money to prove that we could do it because we were frustrated. Stefan had been burned on international sales, and I had been I had failed at trying to raise about $250,000 for a Super 16 film, and we kind of just decided we were going to make this movie, by hook or by crook, and try to make it for as little as possible. That movie actually ended up becoming like the shot that the shot that started effectively the desktop revolution in filmmaking, the digital revolution in filmmaking, and I think it's relatively ironic now that we kind of have such a large surplus of work. I mean, I think it's incredible because there's a lot of great diversity of voices, but I think cutting through the clutter and actually getting to a point of, there are a lot of ways that work can be seen, but the biggest issue now is people making money back from that work in some capacity, and I think that that's kind of like, whereas production, a decade ago was really kind of the revolution. Now it's really kind of around how do you actually make an income from getting the work out there.
I got you.
So
and for our audience out there who's might be familiar more so with Lance's recent work with things like the Work Project and DIY Days, The Conversation, etc. Lance holds the distinction, and it's funny that you would really try to make a inexpensive digital movie, which ended up, rather than getting the press for being done more so inexpensively, was actually got more press for having the distinction of being the first digitally projected film in theatrical film.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really great stories in and around that aspect of making the last broadcast that, when I kind of look back at it, it's kind of incredible that we were able to pull that off. I think sometimes there's this amazing thing that if you don't know what you're getting into, you take more risks, and then if I would have known all the struggle that we would have had with that film, I might not have made it the same way. And I think what the beauty of it is now is that it really was a work that really kind of transcended, I mean, ironically, the last broadcast became the first, and, we actually went on to turn down studio offers and self-distributed the movie, and we kind of taught ourselves how to negotiate deals, and we started our own video label, and we moved, like hundreds of thousands of units of that film, all just because we were, we didn't have anything to lose. We could have buried the movie in the backyard because we made it for $900, and I think that was really a liberating thing, So I think in that sense, doing stuff like that, which is totally relevant today because, I mean, people can pick up cameras and make anything they want. If anything, with digital SLRs, with, obviously advancements in various, post and sound and whatnot, you can really produce something that's pretty incredible now. I think in that sense, you're starting to see all kinds of work that's more cross-discipline, and you're starting to see people who are really exceptional at what they do, which is exciting.
And now you're doing a lot of other things as well, most notably, or not most notably maybe, but one of the more obvious things that you're doing is online. It's called the Workbook Project, which you can find over at www.workbookproject.com. For those of us in the audience who are unfamiliar, what is the Workbook Project, and what is it doing for filmmakers?
The Workbook Project came about because I was approached to write a book about my experiences with kind of self-distribution and DIY kind of filmmaking, and quite honestly, the offer for the book really kind of sucked. I thought, you know what, instead of signing the deal, I thought, I'm going to go and I'm going to release all this information for free, and I'm going to see if I can surpass the advance of the book, just as an experiment. And that kind of gave birth to the Workbook Project, where the whole idea was to kind of pull back the curtain on process, share, what it took to make films, because it felt like there was such a thing where people were constantly kind of recreating the wheel every time, and filmmakers weren't necessarily communicating with each other, and so people were walking into bad deal after bad deal, and I just felt like I want to pull that curtain back and show Oz behind the control, the wizard behind the controls, and kind of demystify some of the process, and then also say, okay, how can we create better business models? How can we create a better foundation for what effectively could be a more thriving independent industry? And that's how the Workbook Project was born, and it's become pretty incredible. I mean, there's such a rabid community around it, and people really give a lot of their time and energy to it because they believe in the mission of it. So it helps filmmakers in a variety of ways. It helps them with resources. It helps them with networking. It puts we try to present opportunities to filmmakers, and then also through DIY days we do these really kind of cool free conferences where they're networking opportunities and also a chance to kind of meet people doing things in different creative industries, not just film, because everybody faces the same challenges. I don't care if you're producing games or you're a graphic designer or you're a musician. People are trying to figure out how they get in front of audiences. They're figuring out, trying to figure out how they sustain from their work. All those things are common, and so the Workbook Project really kind of works to kind of bridge the gap between technology and entertainment.
It does bring a lot of people together. I mean, we've actually had 3 of the New Breed directors who are part of the Workbook Project, on our show as well, and now we've had you on, and now we've just got a few more to add to the big board, and we've got a full collection. Obviously, you got your start as a filmmaker first and foremost. I want to take a moment to show a little bit of your work to everyone here. I want to show everyone the trailer for your last film, Head Trauma, and we're going to show that now. We'll be right back.
Where the hell have you been?
No place really. I just needed a change. But I'm back now and I'm fixing up my grandmother's place.
That's voodoo.
Something bad happened in the house while I was gone.
After your grandmother died, there were lots of freaks squatting in here. They would come and go at night. Sometimes you could see shadows moving in the house.
Hello? I've been having these horrible nightmares. I've been seeing weird things in the house. Mary, I can't stay there tonight. touched something. I don't think it's human. I think it wants to kill me because I saw what it did.
Beneath the still waters of a dark lake does damnation, no redemption remaining.
And we're back. Lance, explain the importance of new independent filmmakers embracing transmedia.
Sure. Transmedia, for anybody out there who doesn't know what the term means, it was coined by Henry Jenkins, who was at MIT and is now out at USC. And basically, from my standpoint, the reason I'm so interested in transmedia is with changes in media consumption and the way, there's so many new opportunities in terms of devices and screens, and people are actually changing the way that they consume media, that I'm interested in that idea of how a story can kind of move away from just one screen, how a character can live and breathe away from just a movie screen or a television screen. I'm really interested in the idea of how you can tell stories across devices, and you can tell stories across screens in kind of new and unique ways. So I think what transmedia opens up is an interesting opportunity for filmmakers where, of course it's all centered around story, but it's an amazing time. It's like taking some of those, it's kind of looking at certain new types of communication methods and saying, wow, these could be interesting in terms of storytelling. This could be a cool way that you could, let a character live and breathe, or, and it could be through some social media outlet, or this is a way that I can let things happen in the real world, and they'll bring, they can amplify theatrical presentations, which we've done a lot of. So I think it's interesting in terms of what I believe will be some new, not only creative opportunities, but also some revenue opportunities for filmmakers, which, kind of goes back to the top of that question that you had at the top, Nick, where you were saying what was important, and I had mentioned that I felt sustainability was. So I really see a lot of potential within transmedia, and also, to be honest, it's a lot of fun, because the times that I've done things where we've run either various alternate reality games or certain live kind of international type things, it's like a living, breathing organism. It's like this creative improv, that you get when you're on set with somebody with actors, except now you have like 2.5 million people participating. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, and speaking of sustaining and sustainability, one of our audience members, Waterholer, just put Head Trauma in his Netflix queue. So hopefully,
thank you.
Hopefully, you see a shekel from that or so. Although I guess it is basically a flat fee, isn't it?
Yes, it's a flat fee, but it's the gesture is nice regardless. So.
You say that the focus right now is on sustainability for the filmmaker. What do you feel is the key to sustainability? Is it making a lot of movies cheaply and just keeping them out there and hoping that one becomes a hit? Is it spending the time and the extra money and the extra production value to make a good movie, and then hiring the right people to help you promote it, or hiring the right people to help you sell it? What do you feel the conversation needs to turn to in terms of sustainability?
Well, I feel like in some ways that the real answer to it is telling good stories. And I know that sounds, obvious, but I think that in a lot of ways, and after, kind of just coming out of the Sundance Screenwriters Lab, where the focus is so much on story, I think a lot of films tend to be underdeveloped and aren't given enough time to incubate themselves, to cook themselves. And I think what happens is there's such pressures to kind of race to market with something. You feel like if it doesn't happen now, it's not going to ever happen. And so I think, actually, ironically, one of the keys to sustainability is probably really taking advantage of the reduction in costs and some of the things that you can embrace now, and really kind of concentrate on trying to make really solid films. I think Tom Quinn's movie, New Year Parade, is a great example of that. It's a film that transcends just being a regionally based film. And it's really very, he's working with non-actors in it, and I know that he took a lot of time with it, and I think in that sense, that is the first step. I mean, I think it really comes down to story, and I think in terms of what was really great about the Sundance Screenwriters Lab was it was an excellent program. I went in not sure of what I would get out of it, and I just had an incredible experience out of it. It was like a chance to kind of hit a pause button and just focus on story, and it's simple things like, what is the story you're trying to tell? What are the, what is it about it that's either personal to you or resonates, and what are those, then like how you take that and you kind of convey it and put it into the characters. So there's like the conflict, there's the resolution, there's the drive, and I think in some ways, if filmmakers kind of really use that focus on that side of it, I think the rest kind of falls into place.
And you mentioned the Sundance Screenwriters Lab. Your feature, Him, was recently selected to attend the Sundance Screenwriters Lab, and has the distinction of being the first feature and transmedia film to actually be supported by the lab. How did that, we're a little bit more pressed for time, but quickly, how did that actually come about?
They have there's a variety of process that you go through, and there's a lot of people that submit to that. So it was very humbling and an honor to be accepted into it. And I think basically I think they had over 2,000 submissions, and they take 12 projects. So I thought it was great. Not only because, to get in, but I thought it was really an honor too to be, the first transmedia project that they took, because I think transmedia has been considered by a lot of filmmakers, and I took a lot of flack for it when I started introducing the concept a couple years back, because people saw it as like what they thought was either a gimmick, or they thought it was promotion and marketing. But in fact, I've always viewed it as storytelling. So being able to kind of go there and really kind of talk about the evolution of storytelling was really exciting.
Yeah, we have, this will be the last question, but we got a joint question from the audience here from Sherry Candler and David Brannon, who I believe you'll actually be on David Brannon's Film Courage. Is it this Sunday?
Yes, yeah, I'll be on the show with those guys on Sunday, and I'm very excited about that. And
be sure to check out David Brannon and Karen Warden at Film Courage. Interview Lance Weiler over at www.latalkradio.com, and they're really good people. We actually syndicate them here at Filmsnobbery.
Yeah, and Sherry's excellent, and I see that Zach Forsman is in there. Those guys, big fan of Zach's, and I think Sherry's wonderful. So
they all have a question about Sundance, and specifically, what did you get out of the Filmmaker Summit?
What did I get out of the Filmmaker Summit as a takeaway? You mean well, is that what you mean?
Yeah, as far as you were there, you were part of the conversation that happened there, and did you come away with more questions than answers? Did you feel that, what was your overall impression as maybe a better question?
I think what was really, my overall impression was that, we had close to, I guess, maybe 1,300 people tune into the live stream, and it was broadcast out to Columbia and USC and a couple other places where people kind of gathered in groups and watched it. And I think the takeaway for me was it was the start towards an international discussion, which I was excited about. We were able to get people in via Skype from, I think it was about 5 different countries, and able to hear some of firsthand experiences with interesting models they were trying and things that they were doing. And I think what I hope it does is start to include more people in a discussion that's more international. Because I travel quite a bit. I've been all over the world, either to festivals or speaking engagements or whatnot. And one thing is clear: a lot of the situation is the same all over, but people are approaching it in different ways. And I think what the Workbook Project started out as is kind of like galvanizing, a kind of a community that has very much become an international community. And so I think the takeaway for me with the Filmmaker Summit was that excitement of being able to have an international discussion.
Well, I want to say again, thank you, Lance, for taking the time. Unfortunately, I mean, I could obviously talk to you for days going across the span of your career, and I'm sure everyone here in the audience could listen to it, but unfortunately it's only an hour show. So, but we're going to have to let you go for now. Again, if you want to hear more of what Lance is up to, I'm sure that David Brandon and Karen Worden of Film Courage this Sunday would be more than happy to give you guys a little bit of an extra Lance boost. I just want to remind everyone that March 27th, Lance will be at the Conversation in New York City. It also, DIY Days is also going to be in New York City on April 3rd at the New School, so be sure to check that out as well. Of course, you can keep up to date of what's going on with Lance over at www.lanceweiler.com. If you're not already, you need to be following Lance Weiler at twitter.com/Lance Weiler. It's keep abreast of what's going on with him and other filmmakers. If you're a filmmaker and you're not familiar with the Workbook Project yet, you need to become familiar with it. www.workbookproject.com. If you like a little bit of entertainment, you can always check out Lance's kind of stylized multi-part doc called Radar at radar.workbookproject.com, where you can see it where it's distributed exclusively at Babblegum. And again, with all the stuff that Lance is doing, just keep abreast of what he's up to and keep following him. Lance, thank you very much for coming on the show. We'll definitely keep following you and what you're doing, and thank you very much.
Yeah, Nick, and keep up the good fight. Congrats on the show, and thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you very much. And Jerry, we're going to go over to you for a second. Who was the winner of the first contest for First Glance Films?
The winner was actually Zach Forsman, so congratulations, Zach.
Yeah, Zach. So but wait, there's more.
You won two ways. I was going to say you won in two ways because Lance mentioned you, he's a fan of you, and now we're giving you a subscription and tickets to First Glance Films Hollywood. So,
well, you got 2 tickets to First Glance Film Festival Hollywood and a subscription to Movie Maker magazine. But wait, there's more, as they say. We have another contest, Jerry. What's the second contest?
Yes, Billy Mays. We are giving away another Movie Maker magazine subscription, courtesy of First Glance Films, First Glance Film Festival. Since the Twitter thing didn't work out perfectly the first time, because some people retweeted it using the retweet function, and that's hard to keep track of when they did that, you're going to have to type this one out. So I'm putting it in the chat right now. Okay. Type it up, tweet it out, and you'll win.
So while Jerry's doing that, I'm going to introduce our next guest. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jerry. What?
Well, I was just going to read it out. Submit your film to First Glance Philly, over $25K in prizes and $10K in cash, and it has a link to it. So
yep, and you have to make
tweet
sure
that out, and you
have to make sure that you @mention Filmsnobbery and @mention First Glance Film on that as well. So I actually am going to introduce our next guest. Adria Richards isn't a filmmaker, nor is she involved in the film industry. But who she is and what she does can help everybody in this audience. Some of you might recognize her as the lady who broke the Norm Coleman scandal, or if you're tech savvy, or you might have seen her speaking at various conferences across the United States. You're going to know her tonight as the lady who is going to teach you how to promote yourself and your products online properly. Here is Adria on Rachel Maddow's show, being interviewed way back when when the Norm Coleman scandal broke, and then what we're going to do is we're going to show you a clip of that. When we get back, Adria will be here to fix all of our online problems.
My next guest, Adria Richards, was one of the first to discover the exposed database. She is a technology consultant based in Minneapolis, and she writes on her blog, butyou'reagirl.com. Adria, thanks for coming on the show.
Rachel, thanks for having me.
First, I have to ask you, when and how did you discover this breach?
Well, when was about 6 p.m. on the 28th of January, and I came across it because I saw a post on Twitter.
You saw a post on Twitter by somebody who had found misinformation they shouldn't be finding online?
No, the Twitter actually said, Norm Coleman website crash may have been faked. And so I was curious, and I followed the link to a blog to read more. Being a techie and loving to fix things, I had to see what was going on.
And so when you went to investigate with your tech skills and your curiosity peaked, what did you find?
Well, everybody was discussing and posting. I took the domain name, brought it over to opendns.com, and OpenDNS helps you figure out if a website is up or down. It said Norm Coleman's website was up. So I said, okay. Every address, like google.com, has an IP address. It's just like you're a person and you have an address where you live. So I took that address for Norm Coleman's website and put it into my browser. But what I got wasn't a website, it was a list of folders. So.
And in the folders you found?
I found a really large database file. And I started taking screenshots and I started uploading them to Flickr because I knew this was not right. So.
And that was the private information that the Coleman campaign now has had to do all this apologizing about?
I would say so, but I was unable to confirm that because I never downloaded the database. But yes, it probably was.
But you posted screenshots of what you found there, thus showing that all of this information was totally unprotected.
Yes, I've never seen a case this blatant before where, you know, it's fine if someone has a fan page about someone who they think is really great. You would see this type of thing where you can browse directories and folders. But, you know, for a senator, I was really surprised, which is why I said I have to get this out. So.
The Coleman campaign says that the only reason this information got out is because people who were politically motivated to try to hurt Norm Coleman went after him for this. Did you have any political motivations to try to influence this election?
No, if it had been a Democrat or a Republican, I still would have done the same thing. For me, the important thing is that people can feel safe about their information. This is not an isolated case. This is happening all over the world. There are many websites where you can see data breach after data breach for hospitals, financial institutions, government agencies.
Minneapolis technology consultant Adria Richards, right at the heart of this case. Thank you for coming on tonight. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Thanks, Twitter.
What's up, Twitter?
And we're back, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest, Adria Richards. Hello, Adria. How are you?
Hey, Nick. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
So I want to launch right into this. I want to make sure we pack as much information into this next bit of time as possible. So my first question to you is, what are some of the most common mistakes that people are making when establishing an online presence?
Yeah, well, I'm more than happy to answer that, Nick. The first thing that people want to do is they want to let folks know about their product or their service or their movie, in this case, right? They want to get people excited. They want to generate some hype. So some of the first mistakes I see people making are they rush out and they get bad domain names. For example, I spoke in Atlanta last month, and I talked about the domain name you never want to get is one that has a dash in it. So if at all possible, you should get a single domain name, all the letters coming together. You may think, well, now it's 2 words with a dash. It actually looks really unprofessional. Also, for the domain name extension, really you want to shoot for a .com. Yes, there's .biz, .info, but realistically, you want to go with a .com. So whether you have to move some words around, one tool I really like to use is called Bust a Name. So bustaname.com, you can go ahead and put in some keywords, and it will tell you what domain names are available. So
And what about email? I mean, a lot of people going around here, I still see occasionally as a film critic, I get people emailing me all the time. I still see at AOL.com, at Yahoo, maybe the occasional at Gmail, which, is slightly more acceptable. But, really shouldn't people be, shouldn't they be doing something else?
That's another good thing, too. I actually would say, though, that Gmail is pretty much acknowledged as being semi-professional, at least. You don't want to have an AOL account or a Yahoo account, or, more importantly, what comes in front of that. You don't want to be Fuzzy Bunny 268, emailing someone about, something as important as your next movie. So really having either your first name dot last name or even having your domain email, and it's really easy to get set up. So really the first step in getting a strong online presence is to do your research. Find some sites that you like and reach out to those folks. Everyone has contact information, and say, I'd like to talk with you for a couple of minutes about your site. You don't have to directly say who made your site, but say, could I chat with you about how long the site took? Not everyone will share their budget, but you could certainly get some good information. Another tip I have for folks is to kind of find out what's working for people. Look outside your vertical market. So in this case, outside of the film industry, outside of indie movies. Maybe take a look at what people in music are doing and reach out to one of those folks. They're probably going to be more likely to share with you, if they see that you're not a direct competitor.
Now, for those of you out there who aren't familiar or very tech savvy or anything, I want to point out that Adria can actually show you how to do a lot of these things with some of her seminars that she actually does over at www.freshworkshops.com, where she does trainings and stuff like that are added constantly. She's a fairly prolific in her ability to crank out new trainings. Also, if you have more specific questions, or if you keep abreast of what Adria is doing, which you can do over at twitter.com/AskAdria, or not Ask Adria, Adria Richards. You have so many things.
And I do have Ask Adria as well. And I have to say, Nick, I like how my hair is replacing the side of your head. It's like we're sharing the same side of hair. So I do like the stream. It's looking pretty sharp.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for me, you're helping me with the hair issue that I have.
There we go.
There you go. So yeah, you can make sure you're following twitter.com/Adria Richards. But I have this live show here, Filmsnobbery Live, every week at on Tuesdays at 10 p.m. God, I can't speak. Eastern Standard Time. You have a show of your own over at www.askadria.com, which is live every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
This is true.
And for those of you who are interested in kind of how Adria can talk you through a lot of these things, or if you want to talk to her directly, that's probably a better forum to do that. So my next question is, if I'm promoting a movie or a product online, what are some of the first steps that I really should be taking?
Well, that is a great question as well. And I want to point out that someone in the chat area mentioned that flash sites are bad. I agree with that so much. I see so many people, once again, they rush out to get something set up, and they don't do their research. So they may say, wow, that site looks really cool. There's all this dancing stuff on there. I want dancing stuff on my site. And they're not really thinking about how that affects them on the Internet. Most importantly, how Google sees you. So with building a good website, you want to have a strong foundation, just like you're building a house, right? Mm-hmm. The other example I give is, let's say you need someone to build a house for you. You're not going to ask someone who paints walls to draw out, the architectural plans, right? Or even build the house. They paint. That's what they do. So really this research and planning is important, and having a good website platform. One of the things I think that helps people who are on a budget is to use something called a content management system. Now, there are several out there. People have probably heard of things like Joomla and Drupal. Well, I have a surprise for you. WordPress can also be used as a content management system, and it's really easy for people to learn how to use. This makes it just effortless to quickly post updates. So if you're traveling, you just went to an event, you just got an award, you just got some funding, you can throw up a quick note on your site, and you don't need to email the request to anyone else. So starting with foundations, you want to kind of look at what's going to build something nice and solid for you, as well as asking for help. If you make a lot of misspellings, you may want to hire a copywriter to help you get up that initial content on your site rather than looking unprofessional.
You know, and I hate to say almost like George Orwell's 1984, but people are watching, even if it's not actual people. Google is watching, and that becomes very important when you're starting to talk about SEO. Explain to me the importance of SEO, and what are some of the more common mistakes that people are making in regards to that?
Yeah, so SEO, search engine optimization. So what that means is that you put out content on a website, and hopefully the platform that your site is built on is friendly with Google. So when Google comes to your site, or some of the other search engines, which I won't name, like Yahoo and Bing and all those other ones that don't matter, when Google comes to your site, it should be really easy for Google to look across your content and kind of figure out, what is this site about? It will then index your site accordingly. Now, people worry about being number one on the Google. Well, the way you get to be number one is by having interesting, relevant, and compelling content. So, for example, one of the suggestions I would give to people making films or people who are involved in the film industry would to figure out, what do people pay attention to? Who are your viewers? Where are they hanging out? I know that we always talk about like new movies because I'll have to confess, I only see about 2 movies in the theater a year, right? So I mainly hear about new movies through friends, whether that's via email, I'm talking to them in person, or on Twitter. And people are like, oh, you just have to see this movie. I'll go
Yes,
see
I
it
do
then.
say that to you all the time.
I know, and then I added to my ever-growing Netflix list, which is like 170 movies, but I only can watch so many. I'm on a low-information diet here.
And that's actually what I was going to ask you was, you're basically what would be considered a casual movie viewer. How do you find new movies to watch, aside from just people recommending to them? Do you just go online through Netflix, Hulu? Do you use other services like Redbox, or, do you just see what's playing at your local theater?
Okay, well, no theaters for me. I don't really like that movie scene. What I am likely to do is if I've seen a movie by a specific director, or if there's an actor I love, like I was on this whole Ethan Hawke thing, so I had to watch all his movies. So thankfully I added them all in Netflix, and same for Uma Thurman. I went through all hers too. I'm like, wow, these are so great. And then actually my most recent was Alfred Hitchcock, so I was going through all his movies. So I'll get on like these binges. But I have to say for Netflix, they are really inaccurate. The other day, what did they tell me I wanted to watch? Fight the System documentaries, allegedly, that, according to my viewing preferences. So I find Netflix to be very inaccurate. I find my friends to be more accurate in terms of, they'll say things like, Adria, I know you read that book, and I think you would like this movie. And like I said, you trust your friends. So really, I don't use a lot of external resources, but it would be nice if there was something like Google that knew what I really did like and gave me great suggestions. So, and going back to SEO, so people try to get to be number one on the Google, and there are things known as like black hat SEO. If you try to cheat the system, you'll get punished. One of the best ways to get good SEO information, like where your site is at currently and what changes you need to make, would be to, if you don't already have this in place, get Google Analytics on there. You need an analytics tool which will track your traffic. You will get information about what cities and countries your visitors are coming from, what pages they land on, how long they stay on your site. You can actually see in detail how they navigate through your site. You also get information about what keywords landed them there. And that keyword information and that content that they're consuming is so important. Once you get a couple months of this data, you can create a SEO strategy. That's really the bigger picture. When people get worked up about SEO and get excited in the wrong way, it's like going to the emergency room. That's not a great way to deal with your health care. You want to be proactive. You want to visit the doctor before you get sick. And that's what the bigger picture of SEO strategy and having a marketing plan is about.
As far as analytics tools go, I prefer one called Clicky.
Yes,
Everyone should check out Clicky.
I agree. And Sean would like that. I think that he said there were several was it several hundred signups in the last 24 hours. Clicky is an alternative analytics tool. I usually run both on sites for my clients. Google Analytics is great for long-term traffic. You can look over it, but Clicky will show you visitors on your site real time. There's nothing like it.
That is speaking of kind of talking about things in real time. Social media. Is social media really the be-all, end-all solution to helping anyone, much less filmmakers, find their audience?
That is a really good question. Hey, people in the chat are asking about Clicky. Yes, MJ Anderson, you're correct. GetClicky.com. Very awesome. I've been using it since 2008, and I love the service. In fact, I told Nick about it. So you should check out Clicky. So going back over to social media, is it the end-all, be-all? No. All social media is it's a platform for your marketing presence and your marketing strategy. So once again, it's like if you focus on only social media and you ignore all these other components of a bigger marketing strategy for your business, for the release of your movie, for the promotion, it's just like going to the ER. All of us probably know someone who doesn't take care of a tooth in the back of their mouth, and they complain about it for several months, and then maybe they have to miss work, and you're just thinking why didn't that person just kind of take care of that thing months ago? So the same thing can kind of happen with SEO and social media, where people get frenzied about trying to put a Band-Aid on something to fix it. You need to build a strong foundation. Go ahead.
We've already kind of gone over the fact that you teach courses on certain topics relating to the internet and technology in general. Are there any topics in particular, maybe even any trainings coming up, that you think and feel might be helpful to my audience?
Yes. In fact, I am doing a free webinar with Blogalicious March 4th. How to be #1 on the Google without spending a small fortune. It's based on the hour-long show I did over at Ask Adria. So I'm sure you'll be doing a post or a link, and you could include that in there, Nick. Also on the 24th of March, I am doing a training on Google Analytics and SEO. So folks can go ahead and register for that. And again in June, I'm doing a 4-week WordPress training. So yes, I love WordPress, and I show people how to set it up. Everything from getting a domain name, to setting up hosting, to installing WordPress, the tools you need to use. We talk about SEO, we talk about themes, plugins, how to write great content, and there's tons of links.
And for those filmmakers that are going to be over at South by Southwest this year, you can actually meet Adria in person. She's actually going to be, you can catch her at South by Southwest on March 12th, where she'll actually be giving a speech entitled How Sci-Fi Shapes the Internet. Which I think is a kind of a, it does a lot. But we're
Nick, you totally just took my entire speech. It does a lot. How did you know?
You always have been short and sweet.
Geez, I'm going to do that. Actually, and then I could pretend to walk off stage and then say, inspired by Nick. And then I could totally plug you and then continue on.
Nice. Nice. See, we had synergy going right there. It was great.
Sweet.
We are unfortunately, Adria is another one of these people that I talk to her all the time, and I could even, as much as I talk to her constantly for a lot longer. Unfortunately, you know how it is, Adria, when you only have a limited amount of time on a show. We're actually kind of running towards the end of that time. I want to thank Adria for coming on the show, first of all. I want to make sure that everyone can, again, make sure that they go to www.freshworkshops.com to sign up for any of her trainings. And they are very comprehensive, and they're very, also can be entertaining, and as well as very informative.
And Nick, don't forget that they should just check out my main personal blog, which is butyourgirl.com, because then you can get a little taste of everything. I put video tutorials on there. Today I was look at this piece of bread shaped like a turtle. I can't wait to butter that up and eat it. So there's all sorts of interesting things there.
No, and you took the words right out of my mouth. See, we've been hanging out together so long. You're finishing my sentences for me. Yes, www.butyourgirl.com is Adria's more personal blog, and you can also check out her live show again. Live every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over at www.askadria.com. Follow Adria on Twitter at Adria Richards. And Adria, as every interaction with you is, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Nick. You
So,
take care.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was pretty much the show for the evening. I would like to thank our guest, Lance Weiler. I would like to also thank our guest, Adria Richards. Jerry, did we already go and tell who the winner of the second First Glance Film contest was tonight?
The winner of Movie Maker magazine subscription is Matterville Media. So you finally won one.
Nice.
So congratulations, Matt.
Oh, congratulations, Matt. We want to take a brief second just to mourn the passing of B-Side that they recently announced that they were closing down, as well as also, and we'll be elaborating more on this in the near future, also the closing of the Vermont Film Commission. And hopefully we can get some more information on that for you guys in the near future. So anyone thinking of filming up in the New England area, specifically Vermont, you may have to speak to their Parks and Recreation Department rather than their actual film commission, because they're shutting it down. Jerry, is there anything you would like to add before we exit the show this evening?
Sure. Well, like always, I'm always pushing Stuck Like Chuck. I'm about to launch the Stuck Like Chuck 2 Indiegogo project. A lot of people on their site's been using Indiegogo, and I'm finally going to use it to try to raise the budget for the sequel, and that should be going tomorrow. It should be going live, so follow me, twitter.com/getstuck, and you can find out all about that and see the links when I post it.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone who has been submitting fundage to Filmsnobbery at our Indiegogo project. That's indiegogo.com/project-filmsnobbery. We recently just got our a little bit of cash from that, and we're working hard to turn it into something that will make Filmsnobbery bigger and better. I will be thanking you guys individually in future shows. But right now, collectively, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And if you haven't watched our new pitch vid, definitely check it out. And if you're not following us, make sure you are over at twitter.com/filmsnobbery. And also fan us up over at Facebook at facebook.com/filmsnobbery. For Mr. Jerry Cavallero, for Mr. Lance Weiler, Ms. Adria Richards, and myself, I want to say good night, everybody.